A couple weeks ago, I went to a protest at the capital of my state. Um, I This is basically what I took away from it. Near the capital, there's a park, and that's where a lot of the protesters were gathered. Closer to sundown is when the curfew kicks in, and it's pretty clear just by being there that this was completely organic. There was no real leadership. No one knew anybody, of course, and an important distinction that I think needs to be made. And I, I've been meaning to get this video out for a while now, but I just never really got around to it because this isn't from the protest, by the way. There's a big difference, a big distinction between the protests and the rioters or looters. Um, and I thought that was pretty clear when basically as a whole, because there were hundreds and hundreds of people there. We all moved from the park to the Capitol building at the front. Most of us understood that being violent or aggressive accomplishes and achieves literally nothing. Um, there were a few people that would, as we were approaching the Capitol, that would throw things over the fence, the bushes, I guess, that separates the street from the Capitol, which is where dozens, maybe hundreds of cops were. They were surrounding the whole building. You walk around the whole place, around every entrance, just stacked with cops in riot gear. No, I don't think I saw like actual riot shields or anything like that, but they were decked out for sure. And what I noticed was there wasn't really a clear goal from the protesters, other than just reaching out to the cops in whatever way possible. Many of us tried to get the attention of the cops we were pretty much face to face with, but I noticed they're really like hardened, uh, trained to be very hardened and not um, just not give an inch, not break character, I guess you could say. They're trained to drown you out and ignore you, regardless of any of the circumstances. As the night played out, I didn't stay for too long, but they did deploy tear gas to break up a lot of the protesting, which was peaceful. There was nobody being violent. Just a lot of chanting, a lot of loud voices and all that. But no one was bum rushing the damn Capitol or any of the units. I think what victory would look like is if one cop out of literally hundreds takes a knee, stands in solidarity with the protesters and the message that's ringing throughout the streets. That sign of solidarity means the absolute world because they know that Black lives do matter. They know that there is corruption within law enforcement and police departments, but no one wants to speak out. If you have 10 bad cops in a department and 1,000 good cops that never speak out on those bad cops, you have 1,010 bad cops. If you're just ignoring everything that's going on with your department and your fellow officers, you're part of the problem. The looting that was happening, and I've been tending to notice this on social media as well. The looting is occurring by people that are basically just opportunists taking advantage of the protesting to break into stores. I noticed walking back to leave on the outskirts of where the Capitol was, there were businesses that were being broken into, and it wasn't just black people, it was white people, it was people of all sorts of ethnicities. How these conservatives are like, what about the black business owners? What about them? Have you been speaking up? Like, have you been propping them up and supporting them before all this was going on, or are you just using them as like your scapegoat? Because obviously, like, they're not being helped right now. But I think that this distinction is still important. The protesters are not the same as the looters. No matter how badly the people want to paint them and portray them in that light. Now I'll finish with this. While I was there, I could not make a single distinction between who was Black Lives Matter and who was Antifa, because they're not organizations. They're not. Everyone there support Black Lives Matter. These are ideas. They're not organizations. Everything there was completely organic, and there was no leadership. It was like herding cats. These conspiracies going around that these organizations are being funded, that's complete nonsense. Sorry, I had to, phone ran out of space. These organizations don't exist. They're just a boogeyman created by the media and the right wing and Trump to basically clamp down on protests that would otherwise be peaceful, and they are. However, are the protesters the ones that are instigating when you're protesting peacefully and you start deploying tear gas and flashbangs, which is what happened on peaceful protesters? Like, what? I don't get it. Anyone who's saying that's like that, like, they're all being violent is just being completely dishonest. I didn't see any violence at all that came from the protesters. It only came from the side of the police. I support the Black Lives Matter movement. All lives won't matter until Black Lives Matter. When you don't respect existence, expect resistance. It's kind of what you got going on here. Thank you, guys.